Ruchim Aboyim B'Shem Irgin Shir Terem. Mrs. Boston, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. I'd like to give a big yeshikach to Mr. and Mrs. Mendy Pomerantz for sponsoring tonight's shir. We would like to have the great schus of sponsoring one of the shiurim of Irgin Shir Teres Habotzas HaTorah worldwide summer program. Call Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the cover to have with us once again Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, Shlita, Rabbi Agudas of Flatbush, Rashiva Mesifta Shalom Shachner, to speak about always looking with a positive eye. It's my cover to call in Rabbi Weinberger for tonight's drasha.
Shekayach. Truth is, Rabbi Bald could probably speak every night, but he's very nice. He invites people to speak. Irgin Shir Torah did a tremendous job growing up. If you weren't in the country in the summer, you had no summer. You were the Nebuchal who was in the city. And Irgin Shir Torah changed that. It's interesting. It says that you're supposed to try to take the chayil and make it into kodesh. Chayil literally means sand. You take the sands of the beach and they made them k'koich v'yashemayim, they made them like the stars. And a gracie yashikoyach on behalf of God's Klal Yisroel to the manhigi of the Irgin Shir Torah. Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkanis tells us when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked his Talmidim, Eize derech, what is the derech that a person should choose in life to be matzliach and ruchnias? And he says it's ayin tova, a good eye. What does that mean, a good eye? Everybody has their own interpretation what it means, a good eye. You can think for a second. What would you think that Mishnah means when it says ayin tova? What does it mean? Rashi, the Rambam, Kamar, all the Rishonim learn. Ayin tova means midas histapkus, to be happy with what you have. Now that's not what I would have thought ayin tova meant. Bazoi taich Rashi and the Rambam, to be happy with what you have. One time I had a boy, I asked him, what are you looking for, shidduchim? He told me I'm looking for a kala with the midas histapkus. I haven't heard that in a long time. He's looking for a kala, midas histapkus, that's what he's looking for. It's a great midah. Why is that a derech? Why is that a mahalach in life? Midas histapkus is a good thing, be happy with what you have. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis says it's a mahalach in life. There needs to be a tifkeit in what the midas histapkus is. And what does an ayin tova really mean? Today I was by the eye doctor. I figured if HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me go to the eye doctor today, certainly I'm supposed to live with ayin tovas from eye doctor. Now he didn't do everything he does, but I'd like to tell you what happens when I go to the eye doctor. It's a whole event. First they sit me down and they take a picture of my eye. I have to look in the glass, and there's a red balloon, usually very blurry. And I have to keep my eye open the whole time. It's very, very difficult. It's very hard. But I passed the test today. They take a picture of your eye. The next thing they do is they take a field vision test. They want to test how much you could see out of the corner of your eye. So again, back to the box. And there's a white background, and there's little dots on the side. You have to push the button when you see a dot. So I mastered this test. What I do is I keep pushing the button, and I get most of them right. And some wrong, but I'm okay. The third thing they do is they test distance, how you could see. Now this I also mastered. I memorized the chart, but I only remember that the first letter is an E. After that, I get confused. Okay, but I memorized the chart. I have distance. And then they check my pressure. They put drops in your eyes, and they see how much pressure is on the eye. So an eye is a wonderful thing. Mir dachtach that if we take these four concepts of the physical eye, we can understand a little bit what ayin tova is. And I'm going to start from a different angle, but we'll try to work our way back, and hopefully our journey will be something that will improve us, enhance our lives, and give us simchas achayim. The Gemara says in Talmud, Alexander Mykton, more commonly known as Alexander the Great, had a salty fish in his hand, And he was washing it off in a mayan. And then he realized that it has a tremendous, beautiful smell. So he followed the mayan, and he found himself at the gate of Gan Eden. It's this Gan Eden. It's geschmeckt from Gan Eden. So he wanted to come in, and they told him, you can't come in. Sorry, Alexander. You might be Alexander the Great. You might have conquered a nice part of the world. You cannot come into. So Alexander pleads with them. He says, you know, I'm a melech. Don't I deserve something? And they gave him a head. A head. A head. A skull. A head. A head. Head. Really a head. That's all. No body. They gave him a head. And he felt it was very heavy. So he took a scale. And this is the Lashon Gemara. He took all the gold and silver that he had, and he put it on one side of the scale, and the head weighed more than the gold and the silver. He didn't understand this phenomenon. So he went to the Chachamim, and the Rabbanan told him, as long as you have a flesh and blood eye, as much gold and silver you have, the eye will not be satisfied. He says, prove it to me. He says, okay, take a little dirt, put it on the lashes of the eye, let the eye close. Sure enough, as soon as he did it, the gold and silver outweighed the head. The Rebbe Shem gave us an eye, but if the eye doesn't see right, sometimes you have an eye, it's deformed, it sees double, it doesn't see everything. That's the picture of the eye. A person has to know when he has an eye, is he looking at reality or is he looking at some imagination that's going through his mind? An eye, the eye, and we don't just mean the physical eye, because it happens to have a physical eye too, but we're trying to learn something to the physical eye, because it's very interesting that they used ayin toiva. Ayin toiva has nothing to do with the eye. It's a midah, we just said. Whatever the midah is. So what's to do with the eye? Chazal wanted to tell us something by using the eye. A person could see something and he doesn't see the emes. He sees gold, he sees silver, he thinks that's important, he thinks that's where it's at, and he's never satisfied. He's never satisfied. And where does that come from? It really doesn't come from the eye. So you do that with B'chon and Vassim and ask the kasha. It says, L'shesurach v'levavchem v'yachrei einechem. L'chayr, it's the other way around. First the eye sees and then the lave is chaymei. Then the lave wants it. How come it says, L'shesurach v'levavchem v'yachrei einechem? It should have been, L'shesurach v'einechem v'yachrei levavchem. When I was a youngster, I grew up, we didn't have much money. You know what we used to do? We used to go window shopping. And window shopping doesn't mean we bought windows. Window shopping means we went and said, ooh, we saw something. Oh, that's nice. I wish I had it. Next door, that's nice. Wish I had it. And then we went home. So the way it works is that Einechem tells you to lave, not the lave tells you Einayim. Zakir B'chan's a mistake. The eye sees what it wants to see. So the lave conjures up an image of what it wants to see. There were two Gedolim walking down the street, and they saw a carcass on the floor in the Vela. One of them says, oh, it smells terrible. And the other one says, ah, what beautiful teeth it has. Everybody sees what they want to see. Go a trip to the White House. Take with you an architect, a carpenter, an electrician. The electrician is going to see the lights. The carpenter is going to see the furniture. And the architect is going to see the building. Is the lave makes your eye see. Your eye sees what the lave wants it to see. So the eye can see something that's not even there, if that's what your lave wants to see. It could see something which is artificial, not real, and think it's real, because the heart wants it to be so. You know when this happened? Tell you what happened. Where's the first place it speaks about eyes in the Torah? Think about it. First place? What? Chava, right. The Nachash says, you know what? Eat from the Eitz Hadas, v'nifkuchu einechem, and your eyes will be open. Well, he was right. But what happened was not what they thought. What happened was they got a superficial eye. The Sephardi says that at that moment, they got what's called a koyach hadimyon. You know, sometimes you have a child, he actually has an imaginary friend, and he thinks the friend is really there. And one of my children wanted to go knock on the door because his friend Yosef Meir was there. There was no Yosef Meir, there was no friend. But his imagination was so strong. So what Chava did, the Nachash did, talked Chava into imagining Vatera Isha, and the lady saw this beautiful fruit. It was like Hayav Nivra. So they took the eye, the real eye, and suddenly they understood things they didn't understand before. They saw it in a way they weren't supposed to see it. So the eye now became a very delicate instrument, which if you have to have the right pair of glasses to be able to use the eye properly. Ram Naftali Trupp sagt der Haftige Wort. I have to tell stories. I work in a camp in the summer. I have to tell stories. Today, even if you don't work in a camp, you have to tell stories. If you're in the middle of shir and you're saying Reb Chaim Brisker, you also have to say a story. Otherwise, they'll lose interest. Chas v'shalom. You have to say a story about Reb Chaim, at least that much. So Kehelis is not known to be a great story. If you ever learn Kehelis, there's really no story in Kehelis. Kehelis is a very philosophical, deep look at life. But there's one story in Kehelis, and I want to share the story with you. It says, it's a Melech Zokin Ksil. It's an old, foolish king. And he went and bought a Mitzudim Gedolim. And he built huge fortresses. A huge siege to a city. And boy, Ishmael came, and fellow came, punched the person. Exciting story. And he saved the city. What's wrong with the story is, because anybody hears the story, is how did he save the city? You have this Zaken, Ksil. He built this huge fortress, huge siege around the city. And all of a sudden he got saved. How did he get saved? If he said that story, the boys would ask me, so how did he get saved? Zakram Naftali Trupp, here's how he got saved. All those Mitzudim Gedolim were an optical illusion. There really was nothing there. People saw it, but it wasn't there. Umilat eseir b'chachmasai. That's all he used was his chachma. He was able to penetrate. His vision was absolutely clear, and he saw there really was nothing there. Person has a mirage. He's dreaming of water. He's in the desert, sees water, because that's what he wants to see. It's a mirage. It's not really there. As a person has to take care of his eyes, that the eye should see what's really there, because the eye is very sensitive. My Rabbi Reb Chaim Schmelz is Tzad Kodesh Levrach. I remember once he said a shmuz. Lahavdil Elf of Dollars, Saint Michael was a pitcher on the Yankees. You know what the Yankees are? There's no Yankees anymore, I don't know. There's a pitcher on the Yankees, his name was Dave Righetti. And there were signs all over. Righetti loves spaghetti. So the Rebbe said, "Was hat es zu tun mit mir, der Italienischer? He's an Italian, he likes spaghetti, was that doing me?" Was that the Zach? You're driving on the highway, it's a hot day. There's a billboard of a bottle of soda dripping with coldness. And it's being poured into a glass with ice, and it says on it one word, refreshing. Suddenly you need a drink. You're doing fine till now. The teretz is the eye says, you need a drink. You don't want to stop for a drink. You have to go further. You don't have to go further. But that's the koyach of the ayin. I'll tell you a niflik azach. Yaakov Galinsky was out and far away from Yerushalayim, far from Nebrak. He had a yeshiva. His children grew up, and they went to Gan. He didn't know if he should stay in the city, because the Gan wasn't the Haredish Gan. And he went to the Chazon Ish, Listen what the Chazon Ish said. And the Chazon Ish said, if the Ganenet, the teacher, is willing to put up pictures of Gedolim, even if the curriculum stays the same, you could leave your child there. But if the pictures are of rabbits and cows, don't leave your child there. And the Ganenet refused, and he moved out of the city. The Chazon Ish is verstanden. If a person sees a picture of a gadol day in, day out, you go today, Baruch Hashem, to the yeshivas, you see on the walls pictures of Gedolei Olam. It makes a roshim. That's the power of an eye. Bein l'tov, bein l'mutaf. This gives you the midas istapkas. Because when a person trains himself in emunah b'toch, he's happy with what he has. He truly believes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Geizer Rosh Hashanah l'Rosh Hashanah. Egleitus fanemes. He doesn't look for stutzich bayenim. How much suffering do we have from looking what's by somebody else? Whether it's his house, his car, what he dresses with. I want to tell you what the Tiferes Yisroel says. This Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkinis is called by Rabbi Yochanan Abor Sid She'ena Ma'abetipa. He never forgot his learning. Why? Because since Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkinis held Ayin Tov, and Ayin Tov means Midas Istapkus, so he was never fadaiget. He never had any worries. People forget they're thinking about 25 things. He has to get this, he has to get that. He didn't live like that. He lived, whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me, I have. And that created a shalvus hanefesh. Shalvus hanefesh. That he was able to learn and retain everything he learned. Unbelievable. I want to tell you what to me was a half-feldik amaisa. I was gedai the whole preparation for this, just for this story. A yid came to a rabbi, and he told the rabbi he has a problem. He has a business, and a fellow down the block opened up the same business. Rabbi, I want you to give him a kloa. His business should shut down. So Rabbi said, I want to tell you a story. The fellow came to my father with the same issue. Came in, said, this fellow down the block has a business. And I watch from my window people going to him. Rabbi, give me a bracha. I shouldn't be sad. And Rabbi gave him a bracha, and he came home. It was okay. He came back to the Rebbe and said, Rebbe, give me a bracha. I should be happy. Give me a bracha. I should be happy that another yid has parnasa. Give me a bracha when I see another yid get covered. That's the side of Ayin Tov. If my emunah and bitochen, then I only see good. I don't see jealousy. I don't see competition. I'm happy for another yid. So we had a Maisa in Britain, very into the royal family. So they had an event. And the queen got dressed up in Psazashena Begodim, and someone was wearing the exact same dress like the queen. That's terrible. Those are busy bizarreness. The queen should wear something that only she has. So the person wrote an apology to the queen. Dear queen, I don't know exactly what you write. Dear queen, please forgive me, I was wearing this. The queen said, I have to tell you something. I didn't notice. The queen never looks at what someone else has. It does sakenik. It does ayid. Ayin Tova, this is what the Rebbeinu Shem gave me. There's a pasuk. The pasuk's in Mishlei. Toiv ayin hu yivayrach. Somebody with a good eye is a gebenchte mensch. Why? Because he gave from his bread to the poor person. And gebenched. Besides that, Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to bestow on him brachas for his godless hamachshava and godless einayim. As a gebenchte mensch, be'etzem a gebenchte mensch. He's someone who he's going to live. But what does it mean, kimelach boy? So in the Mefarshim, he doesn't give him just the bread. He wants him to have his bread. Not stam give him food. I want him to have exactly what I have, not less. And that's godless. That's a toivayin. Ramban says, a person can't really love someone else like you love yourself. You can't. I'm sorry. I love myself. But I can be happy that he should have what I have, not less. I don't need to show off. I don't need to show I'm better than him. Come on. It's okay if he has money like me. It's okay if he has covered like me. I thought I was a big shot because I leased now a gray Rogue. So you have 1,000 gray Rogues on every 5 blocks in Flatbush. Gray Rogues. It's fine. You can have a gray Rogue. That's what everybody else says. It's like good to say. Where do you learn out this midah from? It says that this is one of the midas of Avraham Avinu. 3 midas Avraham Avinu had. One is ayin tova. Where do you see Avraham Avinu had an ayin tova? Because when the Melech Stoim offered him, michut atzroich now, he said, Arimaisi yodi, that I'm not taking michut atzroich now. Melech Stoim offered him all the rechush. Sorry, all the rechush. Tremendous treasures. Stoim, very rich nation, for the richest nations. And he said, Arimaisi yodi el Hashem im ekach michut atzroich now. And the Medrash says that because he said that, Avram got tzitzis, because he said chut. And Sroich now, he got tefillin. Wo kommt rein tzitzis and tefillin though? So the Meshech Chochmah says, what does mean Ha'miroisi Yodi El Hashem? He pick up his hand to Hashem. You want to swear, swear. You want so dramatic? I lift up my hand. What's the drama? He says, you know when you deserve the spoils of war? If you fought the battle and you won. But if Hashem did everything, if I could take dirt and it becomes sword, it becomes a spear, then I didn't do it. Harimaisi Yodi El Hashem, my hand that fought in the battle was Hashem's hand. Not taking anything. And thus is tzitzis and tefillin. Tzitzis and tefillin are supposed to remind you. Zikaron bein einecha. Uri'isam oisoi uzachartem. My Rebbe Rabbi Zatzal said, it's not automatic. People look at tzitzis the whole day, they don't have mitzvah Hashem. It's a tzivui. Train yourself. Train yourself, uri'isam uzachartem. And that's what your eyes should be looking at. That's what your lev should desire. And that's memela, what you should see. And then you see the reality of life. You don't see the mitzaydim gedolim. You don't see the kesef v'zav. You see the ruchnis in everything. You see the godless in everything. And that's the midas istapkus. Because I see that what Hashem gave me, that's mine. I don't have to look anywhere else for what my job in life is. Let's take it to a next level. A person should have this desire to share. Rav comes to a meal, right, and Rav Huna is not wearing a belt. He said, what happened to your belt? He said, well, I gave it away because I have money for Kiddush. So I give you a bracha. What's the bracha? It should be enveloped in silk. That's the bracha. No. Rav Huna was a short fellow. And he was by, I think, his daughter's chasna, and he lay down. All the rich people came, chashiva ladies. And they took off their silk, and they threw the silk on top of him. He was enveloped in silk. That was the bracha. He came to Rav, and Rav said, oh, you should have said v'chein lamar. I said like this. If he would have become a millionaire, he would have found a treasure. I understand v'chein lamar. First, Rav was very tall, so it's interesting. He said it. I was called Abba Richa. But what's he saying? V'chein lamar. Was meintos. So I heard from Avram Chaim 4 years old, gesund sein, which I hold as emes pshat. The definition of the word bracha means to expand, to let it grow. Baruch atah Hashem doesn't just type blessed. It means your Rebbeinu Shem should be nisraba in the world. When you got a bracha and you keep it to yourself, that squashes the bracha. It becomes ice bracha. It's like mekametzet. But if you share it, the bracha becomes greater. So Rav told him, you should have said v'chein lamar. Had you said v'chein lamar, the bracha would have been mekuyim in a much better oifen. Not you should lie in bed with silk on top of you. But Hayos, you tried to take it for yourself. It's the opposite of what brach is. An ayin toiv wants to share. And that's a ayin toiv that's so filled with midas habitachon, gives you a havana in a lot of things that happen in the world too. So now that we got the eye in shape a little bit, and we got the eye that it should see right, now the next thing is peripheral vision and distance vision. You can't just see what's in front of you. You've got to see the whole picture. I'll tell you nifludik avart. Sam Sofer says, "Vayasken Aaron by the menorah, shel lahagid shvachei shel Aaron shaloshim." Kanta Rashi, he didn't. A lot of pshatim. Depends what you are. Yeah, if you're a beditcheva, so beditcheva learns how did he hold his hand straight that he was able to light the menorah with chazah on fire and flame given. If you're Baal Musa, so pshat is every day he lit it with the same his chachos like the first time. Here's what Sam Sofer says: the lights of the menorah were tilted in. That makes less light. It would have made more sense for light of menorah to be straight up. You'd be able to see much better. Why was it like that? There's two lights. He says there's two pairs of eyes. This is the lashon of Sam Sofer. There's physical eyes and ruchnius eyes. And the two things are opposite. The more your physical eye works, the less your ruchnius eye can concentrate. When somebody really wants to concentrate, what do? They close their eyes. They shut out the physical light and substitute a ruchnius light. Why do you cover your eyes by Shema Yisroel? Zok the Sam Sofer, because now's the time to concentrate. And I want to link to something to that. We should understand it better. When Yaakov Avinu is told to go down to Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him a very interesting pasuk. Yosef Yashes Yadai Aleinecha. Yosef will put his hands over your eyes. Now we know there's been in Klal Yisrael, if someone's nifta, the son should come and close his eyes. It comes from that pasuk. But this is the big nechama for Yaakov. You know when you die, Yosef is going to put his hands in your eyes. What's he telling him? He says like this: you should know that as you go through history, Klal Yisrael is going to suffer. Klal Yisrael is going to gullus, and you're going to have many, many kashas, and you're not going to understand. The story of Yosef should be put his hand on your eyes. The story of Yosef has got to be a great tragedy. A favorite son is sold into slavery. For 22 years, he doesn't see his son. And what's the end result? He saved old Klal Yisrael. You know what it means to save Klal Yisrael? Yosef said, come down, and I will support you and everyone you have. And Klal Yisrael exploded, and he fed everyone lefiyat taf, even what the baby needs, for 71 years. That's how Yosef saved Klal Yisrael. So he told Yaakov Avinu, this story of Yosef, Yoshes Yodoi Aleinecha, it's a hand over your eyes. The world is not what it seems. When you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, what are you saying? You're saying today we know Hashem is Elokeinu, and the world doesn't see it. When they took out the Telzer of on Chaf Tammuz, on Yemei Churban from Tels, and the the Nazi guard asked him, Herr Rabbiner, avu dein Gott? Where's your God? And he answered, nicht nur mein Gott, ist dein Gott echet. It's not just my God, it's yours too. In a mol verweltet wissen von dem. And I heard in these words, Shema Yisroel, today Hashem Elokeinu. But there's going to come a time when it's not just Elokeinu, but it's going to be Hashem Echad. So you cover your eyes when you say Shema. Because when you look around, the Metzias doesn't match the Seichel. The eyes are deceiving you. You've got to look deeper. You have to be able to look in the distance. You've got to see peripheral vision. You've got to see that the Rabbeinu Shalom is leading us to Mashiach Tzidkeinu in every Eitzara. So therefore the lights of the menorah were slanted. Because the less light, physical light you have, basically some of you maybe experienced a shalashudis in the dark. It was in Eretz Yisrael, Amol. Went to Reb Tzvi Maya Zilberberg for shalashidis. Maybe some of you have been there. For hours in the dark. Mezinkt, meveint, no one could see you. Even the mirror, which everyone thinks was such a Litvish yeshiva, shalashudis was in the dark. Mit gekannt Musse mit geweint Traren, because no one could see you. And in the dark, somehow you're able to see the emes, which sometimes you can't see in the light. So a person who has an ayin tov sees the world the way it really is. And Yos were mazba that ayin tov is midas istapkus. And Yos explained that midas istapkus from some gewaltige emunah bitochen that lets you see the world as it is. Therefore, you could see the world as it is, not just in your personal life, but in the historische Geschichte von Klal Yisroel. And then a person doesn't lose his cheshik in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why it's a derech, l'fir Eliezer ben Hurkenes. We asked the kasha, l'fir Eliezer ben Hurkenes, why is it a derech? It's just a midah. It's not a midah, it's a way of life. And it takes effort to be able to see. I once had a bach in my ship, 10th grade, very smart boy, couldn't read, could not read. So in the beginning of the year, he was able to, Balpeh, he was able to do it. But by the middle of the year, he just put his head down. It was a shame, tremendous Bal Kishra. I didn't know what to do with the boy. I felt very bad for him. Came from wonderful, wonderful mishpacha. I told the father, take him to work. He needs to be productive. He's just a sad, depressed boy. It was a big gamble. Took him to work. Wasn't so great for him. A year went by, 2 years went by. After a while, I told his father, I want to go to the mirror. He told me later, he really just wanted to go away to Israel. But they're going to the mirror. His father says, you want to go to the mirror? Okay. He went to Eretz Yisrael. There was a fellow there who was an expert in teaching how to read. And he taught him to read. Und sitzt noch und lernt jahrelang in Kairo. Because he was able to see. And then he told me, Rebbe, you should know that I was learning with one hand tied behind my back, or maybe two. Or maybe two. But when you're able to see, you're able to read history, you're able to see Tifti Yad Hashem, then you're eschatshus v'avoide to derech hachayim. Person trains himself to see the good in everything. So you had a lousy day one day. You get up to Mincha, and you say Moedim. In one of the books, it brings down that there was a fellow, Rabbi Barry Rothschild, in Lakewood. And he told a friend, you know, he was down, he said, every time you say Moedim, I want you to think of 5 good things that happened to you that day. I was wondering why he said 5, and then I figured it out. Every day we thank Hashem al chayenu. We're alive. We're alive. Al nishmaseinu. We have a Yiddish neshama. I had a balabas, Chashiv Balabas, Finishas Etlich Mo, is no longer with us. He used to say, I'm so lucky. I could have been born to a couple in Africa wearing earrings and running around in a hula skirt. And instead I'm learning Teiras Hashem. Al Nishmai Seinu. There's a fellow, a young boy, maybe he was a teenager. It was a terrible car accident. And the doctors got together, and the doctors wanted to pull the plug on the boy. Even though he was conscious, and he was talking, but they held he doesn't have much of a chance. There was one from a doctor, and they got into a room, and they said he doesn't have quality of life. He's missing quality of life. So this from a doctor said, okay, I want to see something. Tell me, Dr. So-and-so, on a 1 to 10, what's your quality of life? He says, I'll tell you, my children don't like me. A 6. He asks another doctor, what's your quality of life? He has problems with his spouse. 4, 5. So let's go ask this boy. So they come into his Yiddish kind, and they say, tell me, I forgot what his name was, we call him Machal. How much on a 1 to 10? 10! Why? He says, because I get up in the morning, I can say Moida Ani, I can daven to Hashem to 10. Al nish moiseinu. And then we find out that's Nisecha, Nifloisecha, V'toivisecha, Shebachol Eis. There's constantly nisim going on. Tell me a birth of a child's not an ace. Mamish kamat yesh me'ayin. It's as close to bria as we have today. It's touching bracious. That's not in Nisecha Shebachol Yaim. It's not Toivisecha Shebachol Yaim. So a person realizes this. Lepter Andish. It tracht sich herein. And by Avraham Avinu it says, Vayar, Vayar. He saw the 3 malachim, he ran to them. Vayar, and he understood they didn't want to come to him, so he ran after them. Vayar means to understand. By Aaron it says Vayar. He saw what was going on, and that's why he decided to make an egel. Vayar means Havana. I want to talk about Tisha B'Av for a second. Tisha B'Av. If you look in Eicha, besides the first capital in Eicha, the pay comes before the ayin. Everything's alphabetical. But the pay in Eicha, the pay comes before the ayin. Zokt Rashi, Pshat, because the Meraglim spoke what they didn't see. If the ayin comes before the pay, that means they saw and then they spoke. And they didn't do that. They spoke what they didn't saw. What they didn't see in English. What they didn't saw in Hasidic English. But it's not true. They said what they saw. They saw people dying. They saw giants. They didn't say lies. At the end, maybe they said lies. In the beginning, they didn't say lies. The Teretz says, nicht gesehen. They didn't see. They looked at it superficial. That's not called seeing. If you believe in Hashem, and you have Emunah b'Hashem, what are you talking about? How do you not tie shit up different? I saw Rabbi Moshe Eisman. So gesund sein. It says, Yeshua and Kol said, don't worry, ki lachmeinu heim, there are bread. What do you mean there are bread? He says, how do you get bread? You work on the earth. You put in seeds. You grow the wheat. You grind up the wheat. You make it into flour. You mix it with water. All that is the bread. When you go to the bakery, everything everyone did was for you to have a piece of bread. So everything the Rabbi Nisham did was just that we should walk in and get the bread. Those big cities are we should have big cities. Those big fruits are for us to enjoy. The people dying was that they should ignore us. Lachmeinu heim. It's alles gut. Mensch guckt auf die Welt und weiß, der Rabbi Nisham sagt gut. Sagt der Marsha. It says that on that night of Tisha B'Av, Bachu bechia shel chinam. They cried for no reason. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you're going to cry that night all the time. He says, what did they cry? They spoke Lashon Hara on the Rabbeinu Shalom. They had sinas chinam on the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's sinas chinam. Because they said, b'sinas Hashem oisanu. Hashem hated us. That's why he took it out of Mitzrayim. Sinas chinam. It started there. It started with not understanding how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. And if this is what's supposed to happen to us, then it's good. You find two Lashonos in Chazal. Kol man David Rachmanu l'tava of it. That's one Madrega. Then there's Madrega Gamzu l'tava. Gamzu l'tava is Tifa. Kol man Rachmanu l'tava. I know, Gamzu l'tava. Moshe Sherer. Zechreinu Levracha. He had a heart problem. And he had to go for an operation. His wife was crying. For an operation of the heart. Today we said, oh, he had a heart operation. And he told his wife, don't worry, he said, I'm good. After the operation, he had to take very good care of himself. He exercised, ate a lot of cottage cheese, and he kept himself healthy. And then he got Yana Machla. So the only way to clear Yana Machla, he has to take very strong medicine. They're not sure if his heart can take. But they tested his heart, and his heart wasn't the heart of a 60-year-old, it was the heart of a 40-year-old. Because he had taken such good care after the operation that now he was able. So he turned to his wife, Zeistu, Baruch Hashem, Magdim Refuah L'Makeh. Could you imagine what Klal Yisrael felt with this Haman Maisa? But the Maisa is Magdim Refuah, Esther's already in the palace. We have to get his iris from this to be able to look at life personally and historisch and Klal Yisrael mit aguta oik. And I'm going to tell you a certain secret how to do it. It's called vocabulary. It's the words we choose to describe something. A fellow came to Rav Pam, and he said, I have a problem with the shidduch I'm going out with. She's too strong. So Rav Pam say, don't say strong, say dynamic. Uy, mit tammuz, gute Sache. She's not strong. She's dynamic. Things are terrible. Right now, I'm going through a time that's a little difficult. There's a bunch of people used to travel together in a carpool to the city. Somehow, when he came to work, he was always so upset. Then he realized why. He comes into the car, and the first person says this about what happened to him bad, and this guy happened to, and his boss did this, and his wife did this, and his kids did this. By the time he came to work, he said, no more carpool. No more carpool. Ich gehe mit der Boss, ich gehe hier ein Ashir, ich gehe hier ein bisschen music, and the world is good. I tell Rebbeim, they shouldn't fall into coffee room syndrome. You know what coffee room syndrome is? They all go for a coffee, and each one starts saying all the problems about the manal and this one down. By the time you come back to shit, the fellow's so angry. Other and learning, talk about the weather, go prepare your shit. We're our own worst enemy in that. Because if we look at things with a kruma oik, if we don't try to take the positive, if we believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, and sometimes it gets hard. V'afot became our vision, our peripheral vision is good. We see much wider range. But then we spoke about distance. Distance. Yaakov Avinu has a Ma'aseh Nebuch with Dinah. Terrible story. Think about it. And Shimon and Levi go and they kill out a whole city. And Yaakov says, what did you do? Acharta moisi. And Shimon and Levi say, protest! Protest! So Shimon and Levi, fire! Yaakov doesn't say a word. 50 years later, Yaakov says, Shimon v'Levi achemhem, klei chomos b'cheresei. He waited till the right time. This is not the mahalach of a yid, hachazoyni yasach hosenu. I heard this from the Rebbe Reb Gifta. There was an organization. It's called the Jewish Defense League. Some of you might remember it. Don't tell me you do, because you'll be dating yourself. And their slogan was never again. Every Jew of 45 is a type of a gun. And the Gedolim didn't hold of it. Yeah, there's much sorrow. I'm sure there's much sorrow as their leader had. But in a weiter cook, nicht as I handelt man. It's going to go back to haunt you. They were able to have Ezel Chacham Arayas, and there's a reason why this Sanhedrin is called Einei Ha'eda. They see things differently. Kairach saw that descendants are coming from him, holy descendants. So he figured, Mamish, he didn't know his children do tshuva. But Loshen Rashi's half-liver fella. Einoi shel Kairach itayu. Loshen Yachid. He didn't lose his whole vision. He didn't see in the distance. So if you're blaming Chasmin, you ever have something stuck in your eye? What else can you think about when you have something stuck in your eye? Nothing. He had something in his eye. Einoi shel Kairach itayu. He didn't have clear vision. He wasn't an Einei Ha'eda. That's what happens. And the last thing is pressure. We have a lot of pressure to do things right away, to act right away. And we don't see the whole thing because we're under pressure. You have to act right away. It takes myridika koiches. I saw by my rebellion that even the most difficult circumstances, they didn't let go. They knew what had to be done. Pamelech, slow, not right away. Person doesn't have patience. So you see something, Naya Mishagas in the Welt, we should learn like this, and we should do this, and then, Gedolim said, there's a Messiah. This is how we do it. You can't let pressure ruin your vision. Tyre Yidden. Everybody knows the 3 weeks, everyone's the 9 days, and we got to fix things up. You got to check your vision. If you're a forbidden person, which you probably have a right to be, and you want to stay a forbidden person, then I can't talk you out of it. But if not, let's rise up. Let's see the Rebbeinu Shalom's yad in everything you do. I was looking at Shalom Shvadron, how he woke up in the morning. First he would say Moida Ani. Then he would say Hinni Muchem Zumen, to wash my hands. Then he would say, I'm getting dressed. He going l'kras l'kach, I'm preparing to daven. And he would make his beard straight and his payas, and he would say, I'm preparing to daven to Hashem. And everything he did was a ma'isa with the Rebbeinu Shalom. It was never separate from the Bari Olam. A person like that gets a different perspective in life. Can handle the challenges of life. There are many challenges. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want us to fall apart. He has nothing from us falling apart. But if we see the Yad Hashem, we know that in the future, and even now, not just Koman Rachman L'Tavav, Gamzul L'Toiva, will be Zeichem Yetz Hashem, to the day when we're going to be Zeichem to see Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Geulos, and Yeshua's for ganz Klal Yisrael. Okay.
Shem Egan Shir Torah, Moses Boston. We'd like to give a big yesher koach to Rabbi Weinberger for the inspiring drasha. We'd like to give a big yesher koach to Mr. and Mrs. Mendy Pomerantz for sponsoring tonight's shir. Rabbi Yisrael can have the great schus of the Agudas Torah, the Rabbim of Egan Shir Torah's worldwide summer shirim program by sponsoring a shir. Call Egan Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com for this great schus. Yesher koach to everyone for coming. Kanani ben Akashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakeh, says Yisrael Figure Hibel and Torah Mitzvah Shenema Alenei Chofetz L'man Sidkoi Yagdul Torah V'Yadeh. Gado V'Skado Shmei Rabbo. Shalom Zavusav Yamach V'Achusav V'Yatzim V'Konim Karam Mashiach. Chayechem V'Mechem Chayil Chol Beis Yisrael Ba'agol V'Man Korav V'Mom. V'Nach 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 V'Nach